Hi, everybody, and welcome to this live stream. I am just trying to go live on, I don't seem to be able to go live on Instagram as well. So sorry, I got slightly distracted there. So welcome to this live stream where I am chatting about felting to creating felt with a view to eco-printing it, because I have some pro tips to help you achieve the most successful results. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Nicola Brown. I'm a textile artist living in rural Ireland. I grow pretty much all my own vegetation for eco-printing, and I'm really interested in developing a sustainable practice. I'm passionate about wet felting, and I really love creating my own felt and then printing it. So I'm here facilitating this live stream by myself today. I don't have my right-hand woman, Shauna, with me. So if you have a question for me as I'm chatting, please feel free to leave it in the comments. And you need to put 3 question marks in front and 3 behind so that I can see your comment easily. If you don't do that, I may miss your question because I can't keep my eye on everything at the one time. And some of you are joining live from different countries. Hi to Pilar in Argentina, and that's fantastic. We have Suboda from Sri Lanka. Apologies for my pronunciation. Don is here in Mexico, but I'd also like to greet people who are on the other side of the world in New Zealand and Australia and everywhere in between. People who are not able to watch this live. But if you have a question, please feel free to add it as a comment on YouTube afterwards, and I will do my best to answer it. I've also received some questions by email from newsletter subscribers, and I'm going to be answering those as I go along. So the big thing is when you are felting and you want to eco-print, fiber selection is obviously going to be important. And you might be asking which type of fiber will eco-print best, from different animals, or which color. So let's start with the actual, let's start with wool. So wool is coming obviously from sheep, and wool felts really, really well. And it's what most people would start to felt with would be wool. But there are also other animals. So for example, you can felt very successfully with alpaca, with llama, with camel hair, with yak. You can felt with your dog hair, mohair, cashmere. So there are all sorts of different sorts of fiber coming from animals, and they will all those fibers will wet felt very well, and they will also take the eco-printed color well. But there is a provision. So it's providing the color is pale enough that the eco prints will stand out against your background. So you may live in a country, or you may have your own llamas and you want to work with your own fiber. That's fantastic. Just make sure that the background color is pale enough, and everything will work out perfectly when it comes to the printing. Now, I specialize in eco-printing in the dirty pot, working without traditional powdered mordants. So it's important to bear in mind that if you are following me because you also want to eco-print in the dirty pot, we will be boiling our felt for long periods of time in order to extract the best color and achieve the best prints. And if you are going to be using traditional powdered mordants, you may very well be steaming your felt, and you may not be processing it for anything like the length of time that we are doing. But I would say a pro tip for those of us who want to eco-print in the dirty pot: rather than using a dark commercial wool or any other colors of wool in our felt. If we are going to print in the dirty pot and we want to emphasize certain areas, I recommend felting with a natural, undyed, creamy white color fiber, wool or any other fiber, but you can use black or dark chocolate brown wool to enhance certain areas of your felt. So for example, if you lay a layer of fine fiber, a dark fiber around the outside edge of a jacket or a Nuno felt top, when you then subsequently go and eco-print that in the dirty pot, because that fiber is a natural color from the animal, it will not bleed. The color won't run in the pot. But I have seen situations where people have used commercial fiber or let's say a black merino, and that can, I've tried it myself, that can often leach the color in the pot. And that's because we're processing at such a high temperature for a long time. So I recommend, when it comes to your fiber selection, if you're new to wet felting, I would stick with wool. And the easiest wool to start with is merino. But you can felt with any sort of wool that you have and that you're happy, you know, that it's felting well. So I suggest working with a natural white or a creamy white color. And if you want to add emphasis anywhere, use a dark fiber, a natural fiber to add that emphasis. So that would be for the base of your piece. And you don't have to use embellishing fibers to add highlights, but you can. And I am going to be sharing a selection of images of my own work and talk you through them, so you can see some of these different effects. But maybe I will just pull up one now. I'm just checking for the image. Oh, I don't see it. Okay, I'll put this image here up for a second while I find the other one. So this image here is a felt sample, and this felt sample has been eco-printed after felting. And you can see here that it's a very matte looking piece of felt. So this is because you're looking at the wool and there are no embellishing fibers on this surface of this particular piece of felt. And so this felt has been eco-printed using a selection of local leaves from my property and one red eucalyptus leaf under the tie marks. But on the other side of this particular piece, because felt is that bit thicker and you can have totally different prints on both sides. On the other side of this piece, I have used embellishing fibers. And here you can see the other side. So those wrinkly white fibers, they are actually a cellulose fiber called tencel. And tencel is made from eucalyptus pulp, and it's very environmentally mindful. Of all the cellulose embellishing fibers, it would be one of the best to choose from the sustainability perspective. So those white sort of lines, they are from tencel. And the reason that they stand out on the surface of the felt is because cellulose fiber does not absorb the same amount of color in the dirty pot as protein-based fiber. So the wool is protein-based. The embellishing fiber in this case is cellulose-based, and it sits on the surface and you see it very clearly. But there is also another fiber on that piece, excuse me, and the other fiber is called Firestar. So Firestar is the only man-made artificial fiber that I use, and it's actually nylon. So when I go back to looking at this, I can see that not only is there the white wriggly design on the surface, but this almost shimmers. And Firestar is absolutely beautiful. You would use that as the last fiber in a piece. Excuse me. and it actually absorbs the color. So nylon, if you have nylon fabric as well, nylon fabric and nylon fiber absorbs the natural dye, and the cellulose fiber doesn't. So a question that has come in from a newsletter subscriber, and also that I often get asked, is when you are actually wet felting, when do you stop the felting process if you're planning to eco-print? Many people think that you would stop felting, let's say when your felt is 80% ready, and that then you would print. But actually, I like to felt my pieces really 100%, 95% anyway, but I prefer to felt them the whole way, and then I just reshape them afterwards. So if you stop the felting process when you're about 80% felted, you run the risk that your piece may shrink. So I recommend that you definitely felt it fully. The other thing is, if you felted 80% and you print it, then when you do that final 20%, you're going to distort the prints. They won't be as crisp and clear. So I highly recommend that you just felt everything as normal. Make sure it's finished shrinking before you go and you eco-print it. So then another question that came into me was, can you eco-print sculptural felt? And by sculptural felt, we mean things like vessels and bags, and obviously other more complex sculptures as well. So definitely, here's a little felt vessel that I created with bumps. There is actually Firestar on the surface of this, so it's slightly reflective in places, not everywhere. So when you are printing sculptural felt, again, you create the felt, you shape your piece, but then what I do is I flatten the piece, then I roll the whole flattened bundle up, and I make sure that at the beginning, I make a decision about where I want any tie marks to be from the bundle. I roll it up, I print it, I finish it, and then I reshape it afterwards. And I love felting these vessels or any sort of smaller sculptural piece. I think they can be quite funky when they are eco-printed. And living in Ireland, we have a lot of dry stone walls, and these look very natural against the wall and the moss. So frequently, people ask, how come the felt does not shrink when I am eco-printing? How do you prevent your felt shrinking? Well, the simple answer is you need to make sure that it is fully felted. And when I have been teaching abroad, one of the things I find a lot is that for people who don't have a lot of experience wet felting, they tend not to finish their pieces as much as I would do. You need to make sure that there's no more shrinkage, and to achieve the best quality felt, near the end of the process, stretching the felt, whether it's a scarf or whether it's a sculptural piece, stretching it, shrinking it, stretching it, shrinking it. The more you do that until it won't stretch anymore, then your piece of felt is finished. And at that stage, if it's finished like that, it is not going to shrink in the pot. And the very same with the sculptural vessels. I make sure that they have finished the shrinking process. Or if I'm working on a beret, for example, make sure it has finished shrinking before you put it to the pot. Then I had a question. So is it possible to keep the background of your felt that natural white color, but still have strong leaf prints if you're working in the dirty pot? And the answer to that is absolutely you can. And it really just comes with experience as well, but I'll just share a couple of images here. So this particular Nuno felt skirt, this is an image from quite a number of years ago. I wanted to eco-print this using onion skins, which I did. And I had a very onion skin rich pot liquid. So you can see those stripes at the bottom right hand side of the piece. You can see those stripes, and under the stripes, there's that strong, rich, dark chocolate brown color. And so that is the color that my pot liquid was. But you can see that the rest of the skirt is a pale white color. The felt is white. So it is possible to keep the background of your felt that natural pale color, but to have strong leaf prints. And here's another piece. This is a sort of a tunicky aprony thing. It could be worn either way around. And again, that was actually printed in a pot with a very strong amount of kind of a reddish chocolate ready brown color of pot liquid, but the background of the felt is pale. And this one here was printed in a different at a different session. The pot liquid wasn't as strong, but there's plenty of pale color. And if you didn't want to have as much influence as this from the pot liquid, what I would recommend that you do is that you wrap the outside of your bundle with something like a piece of old linen sheet or a bandage, just to prevent the that color coming through. And another newsletter subscriber, and by the way, the link to my newsletter is probably going to be in this video's description below. So if you are interested in joining it and having weekly updates from my studio, I'd love for you to do that. But one of my newsletter subscribers was saying that she actually has a couple of jumpers, you might say sweater, so hand knitted jumpers that her mother made. And one of them has already shrunk somehow in a tumble dryer. But what she would like to do is she would like to actually be able to incorporate pieces of these into a new item. So she was wondering if you had a knitted item, and I understand this isn't wet felting, but if you had a knitted item, is it possible to print it? So would you need to dismantle it first and then maybe cut it into squares later and crochet and make a blanket? What I do is I would actually give both your garments a good wash in a washing machine on the wool wash, and I would use an olive oil soap. So for anybody who has a wool sweater and they want to eco print it. Miriam is a member of my Dirty Pot Club. She's new to eco printing, and she's done some wonderful hand knitted jumpers recently that she made herself, and they printed beautifully. So just either wash the garment by hand or on the wool setting in your washing machine first. And I would recommend you just print the whole garment, and then you could cut it into your pieces afterwards. Of course, you could dismantle it first, but I think you'll get really nice prints if you print it as one whole piece. So if you do have a question, before I run through some more images, if you have a question for me, this is just a short live stream. Please ask your question in the chat and put 3 question marks in front and 3 behind. That would be fantastic. I'm just going to run through these images again. So I'll just go back here. So as I said, this first one was onion skins on Nuno felt. And there's a lot of texture in this particular piece. There's a lot of silk as well as wool on the surface of that piece. Same with this one, Nuno felt, Nuno felt. And this here is a close-up of 2 sides of a felt wall hanging. And you can see the textured side, which is at the bottom of the image. That's the side that I have some silk fabric on. This is printed with a couple of different varieties of eucalyptus. And then the portion at the top with the finer eucalyptus Nicolai, that is wool with some embellishing fibers on that side. Here is a coat that I created from Nuno felt fabric. So the fabric was felted first. The orange was actually dyed using eucalyptus leaves, and then the main body was printed using eucalyptus leaves. So then this is a scarf. I actually felted this particular scarf during recording for a television program quite a number of years ago. It was a program for children, in fact, and it was a series. So I was in 5 episodes. And this was the first time I eco-printed using leaves from a new eucalyptus tree. And I was praying that they would give nice red prints, and they did. They actually printed really well. Here I'm in a selection of different, or I have a selection of different eco-printed pieces, but I'm sitting on a sort of a lap blanket, or it can be used to sit on like I have here, and that particular piece is felted. That is the flat felt piece, the sample, and with no embellishing fibers on that side. And this here is a scarf, 2 images of the same Nuno felt scarf, and there is Firestar on these, and also some white fiber from a cellulose fiber. And Sheila is asking where you get Firestar. Sheila, I'm not sure what country you are in, but I'm going to post a comment myself if I'm able to. Let me see. Trilobal. So Firestar is also called trilobal nylon. Give me 1 second. I'm going to put this up on the screen for you. So I now purchase my Firestar or trilobal nylon from World of Wool in England. But the first time I came across Firestar, I found it in America. So almost all the felting suppliers in America will sell it. And what you're looking for is you're looking for the white one, or the extra shiny, bright white. You want it in white, and then it will absorb the color from the eco printing. And it's not to be confused with Angelina. Many people think it's the same as Angelina, but it's not. It does look sparkly, and if it's already been dyed, it's very sparkly looking. So you're looking for the white, undyed, trilobal nylon, and the trade brand is Firestar. Okay, I'm going to check and see, are there any other questions? Okay, so Elise, I hope that's how I say your name. So she's wondering how I work with such a large piece of fabric like the skirt. And so I'll just pop the skirt back up on the screen. Okay, so when I'm printing something like this, because I wrap my pieces really, really tightly, this bundle is surprisingly small. So this bundle was not done in a very big pot. I didn't have my largest pots when I made this particular piece. It was just done in the sort of pot, what we in Ireland call a stock pot, the sort of pot that you might cook a ham in. So this wasn't done in a very large pot because I really, really make sure that I roll the bundle very tightly. So I can't say any more than that, but this was not done in a big pot. So Sheila, you're welcome. I'm glad that that answered your question. So if there are any more questions, if you have them now, please ask them. Otherwise, I'm going to just wrap this up. I hope I have given you some tips about felting with the view to printing, because I know it's something that definitely I find it's very worthwhile doing. The felt takes color beautifully, and because it's that protein-based fiber. And if you want to start with something really small, I actually was just getting this out because I'm heading away somewhere shortly. This is just a little felt bracelet that I made. But if you want to do some small things, they can be really good fun, and bags are really good fun as well. Okay, ladies and maybe gents, I think that's it. If you're watching this as a replay, please remember you can ask questions as a comment afterwards, and I will do my best to answer them. If you're looking for a simple project, a little sculptural project, a felt bangle, you can make a few of those and print them. Felt bags are wonderful, and of course, scarves and garments. So thank you all so much for your attention. Over and out from Cláshín. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.